Welcome to Yukihira Restaurant, home of the world-renowned chef and his genius prodigy, Suma. Everyone gathered to witness the fierce rivalry between father and son, and their cooking was sufficient to have everyone praise their master class. After losing the battle, Suma turned into a sore loser and force-fed a disgusting squid to a poor soul who was teleported to cuisine perdition. Who knew cooking would be this entertaining? The comedic relationship these two had was surely enjoyable. They served only the best to their customers, even though they weren't a fancy establishment. Our boy had high aspirations of following in his father's footsteps, and just then, government officials came threatening to close the place. Japan is sure filled with corrupt officials who think they own everything. Luckily, Suma blew them off and told them to take a piss. That's how it's done, if you ask me. The next day, while he was returning from school, he received a call from his father who told him he'd be away for a while. Upon entering the restaurant, he found his entire food supply tarnished and his store vandalized. I wonder who it could be. Oh my. Would you look at that? The pompous prick of a lady wanted meat and told him his place would be shut down if he couldn't serve his customers. Now that was a low tactic. Even so, Suma wasn't willing to give up without a fight and put on his legendary apron on. Talk about a nasty game face. Our boy went to work and started cooking to save his life. His speed, his finesse. It was a wonder to behold. Makes me want to learn how to cook. He had finally done it. Using leftovers, he served them a meal. Even so, the prick demanded meat or else. Suma confidently asked her to taste the meal before judging. Unable to resist the temptation, she grabbed her fork and took a bite. The delicacy of the flavors burst inside her mouth, leaving her begging for more. He started explaining how he did it. In the most scientific of explanations, he convinced everyone that cooking is about the intellect, not just the ingredients. She tried going on for seconds, but he took the meal away and threatened to throw it away. She promised not to shut the place down, and the aroma beguiled the guards to join inside this exuberant sensation. What a remarkable performance, if I might say. The following day, he fixed the place up and had it nice and tidy. His father showed up and told him he was about to close down the restaurant, and in the meantime, told him to go learn at the most refined culinary institution in town. Suma was bummed by the idea, but went to give it a try. He mocked their practices until he saw the school and realized it was only for the elite. Elsewhere, Nakiri Arena was tasting one of the chefs cooking and was disappointed by their lousy efforts. She criticized their lack of creativity and compared it with that of a rudimentary gorilla. Now that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Suma was still dumbfounded by the Totsuki institution while his father was cooking for rich billionaires in New York. Now that's the life of a successful chef for you. Even monks came barging in ready to break their vow for his cooking. Suma accepted the challenge and went forward, ready to surpass his father's skill. He then met up with a random NPC who started explaining the school's system to him. However, upon hearing he works at a dinner, the guy started running his mouth. These arrogant pricks really do annoy me. Everyone looked down upon Suma since he didn't work at a fancy hotel. Nakiri was ready to judge the applicants and presented their ingredient of the day, egg. As expected, everyone ran away in terror since Nakiri was bestowed the divine tongue. Even at a young age, she used to judge top chefs, and her evaluation was the most valuable in the food industry. Suma was incredulous to this and wanted to give it a shot. Nakiri accepted his challenge and was revealed to be the highest decision-making body. All this meant nothing to him as he started to cook with passion. His elegance and style was always a wonder to behold. Upon hearing his dish, she was infuriated. How dare he serve rice to her? Even so, she was curious to see what this diner chap could do. She was disappointed at the presentation and told him to come back when he mastered cooking. Even so, he tempted her to behold his masterpiece, and she was left dazzled by the transformation. The aroma beguiled her, and she decided to give it a try. Upon taking a bite, our beloved judge was going for seconds. This guy surely knows his stuff. And the delight left our beauty queen on cloud 9. She was up in the heavens fondling with angels and succumbed to the temptations of his cooking. She went out feeling embarrassed and even failed him. How pathetic is that? The next day, everyone gathered to witness the start of the new year, and the director, Nakiri Senzaiman, her grandfather, gave a heartfelt speech. This man was known as the devil of food, and from the looks of it, he sure was knowledgeable and intimidating. Everyone was excited for the new year, and the competition was more fierce than ever. After his speech, Everyone was riled up and ready to kill a bull until a transfer student was announced. Guess who showed up? Yep, it was our boy Yukihira, who not only gave a speech but declared an official challenge to everyone. Talk about guts. Nakari was upset and felt even more embarrassed. However, she tried playing it cool and acting nonchalant. He wasn't impressed with her facade and told her he'd make her admit defeat. Meanwhile, another student, Megumi, was feeling quite nervous and even ended up beside Yukihira, who did not show any sympathy towards her while everyone was gunning after him. The teacher walked in and gave them their new assignments. Failure meant automatic expulsion. This sure is a tough school. They were meant to cook a French cuisine within 2 hours, and everyone started running around frantically. Yukihira seemed quite chill while everyone was stressing out. Megumi was about to burst, and just then, one of the students sabotaged her cooking by adding salt. Talk about bad luck. It seems that she and Yukihira were in the same group and he decided to start all over, even though they only had 30 minutes. Now that's dedication for you. They work hard and delivered a meal within minutes. How is that even possible? I guess Yuki has some tricks up his sleeves. Both Megumi and the judge were melting in excitement, and his dish received an automatic A. Afterward, Yukihira got lost trying to find his dorm. He finally made it to this rundown mansion filled with eerie vibes. He was greeted by an old lady who seemed like she was ready to throw hands. She demanded he cook her a meal in order to pass. He wasn't ready for another challenge, but had no choice since it was either this or sleeping on the street. He found a few ingredients in the kitchen and got to work. Every time he cooks, something magical happens, and in a blink of an eye, he was done. The old lady, Fumio, took a bite and started to lose it. Her senses started tingling and waves of emotion came crashing down. She finally felt the warmth and enjoyed every bite of it. It even reminded her of her teenage years and the moment she first felt true love. She accepted him to her dorm and handed him the keys. Our boy immediately rushed to the bathroom where he found Megumi. Talk about an unexpected coincidence. He kept on reminiscing about the restaurant until he was interrupted by the whole gang. They all welcomed him to their dorm and gave him advices on how to become a better chef, not that he'd need it. He and Megumi started bonding and everyone was having fun. He sure will have one heck of a school year. I still can't believe Yukihira opened up so quickly. I imagined he'd be a shut-in, or at least a solitary creature. However, they all accepted one another and clicked instantly. Yukihira then met the 7th seed of the Elite 10, Ishiki, who challenged him to a duel. Things sure are getting exciting here. Yukihira wasn't willing to be bested by him and started giving it his best. He prepared some soup for everyone, and they were all bamboozled by his creativity. Ishiki, for one, was beyond surprised at this nobody who allowed him to experience grace. I have high hopes for Yukihira. He even challenged Ishiki for the 7th seat in the Elite 10. If you have ambitions, might as well reach for the heavens, am I right? The following day, everyone woke up and went to witness a cooking battle involving Nakiri. A research club challenged her for the spot, and as expected, Nakiri wiped the floor with him. The duel was commonly known as Shokugeki, where chefs battled to prove who was superior, and Nakiri was the undisputed champion. What else would you expect from the divine tongue? The concept of Shokugeki sure is scary. Fortunately, Yukihira doesn't have to worry about that for now, and was given a tour of the Polar Star dormitory. They had their own farm, and grew all types of fruits and vegetables. Megumi made them delicious rice balls, and they went ahead to show him the campus. That's where they met the leader of Don RS, who was looking bummed about his club being shut down. A hottie by the name Mito came along threatening he pack up his bags and leave. She is commonly known as the Meat Master, and everyone feared her except Yukihira, who challenged her to a Shokugeki. Everyone was confused on why he did it, but Yukihira simply wanted to cook. They tried strategizing of ways to defeat Mito, the Meat Master, and Yukihira already had a bulletproof plan. He kept on perfecting his dish day and night until it was spot on. He finally found the sweet spot, and they all agreed that this was the one. Mito was too busy choosing her outfit while everyone was prepared to witness the battle. The stage was ready, and the adorable announcer called upon the contestants. Mito was looking fabulous as usual, and everyone kept on booing our boy. Talk about discrimination. Losing meant expulsion for Yukihira and submission for Mito. It was finally time, and they both went to work. Mito was showing off her skills and why she was hailed as the Queen of Meat. She left everyone at the edge of their seats while Yukihira was playing it safe. This battle seemed like it was over before it began, in favor of the seductive Mito. Time was up, and they both presented their dish to the judges. Mito's dish was exquisite to look at and taste. The judges were impressed as always. However, Yukihira's dish turned them into ravenous beasts. They couldn't help but gobble up every bite. To add insult to injury, he gave her his dish and made her understood what true love felt like. The cooking genius did it again. All hail the new king. The following day, the students were getting ready to head out to camp and everyone seemed terrified. It seems that a lot of students were expelled the previous year because it was extremely difficult. Even so, they were all hyped and vowed to return safe and sound. It was time to head out, and buses were aligned in rows. Afterwards, they headed to what seemed like a prestigious hotel, and the camp of hell had officially started. Everyone was nervous, and the French chef gave a speech about the severity of the exams. He then welcomed the previous alumni, representing the cream of the crop, the top 1% who broke through and made a name for themselves. Among whom, the head chef and company director of Totsuki, Dojima, gave another speech explaining what they must do. It was time for the first exam, and Chef Inui told them to go hunt for their ingredients and make whatever they like. She's making it sound like it's a survival game, huh? Since they had 2 hours, everyone rushed to secure something, and Yukihira tried fishing. He had formidable opponents gunning after him. The Aldini brothers from Italy were masters at what they did. They were ahead of everyone and showed everyone what true Italian cooking looked like. As expected, the chef was impressed by their grace and gave them passing marks. In a flashback, we are shown how the Aldini brothers started work at a young age, and their father insisted they compete at Totsuki to prove their worth. After they passed, everyone was on edge, and Yukihira was starting to feel the heat. Even so, he wasn't going to let himself get beat and went out to salvage more ingredients. In the meantime, several students were failing left and right, and the tension was getting to them. Yukihira came back looking fired, and Megumi was as devoted as ever. These two are starting to turn into a great couple. They presented their dish, and boy oh boy, did the fried fish look savory. The chef started swimming with the fishes and was blown away by his unbound creativity. The Aldini brothers were upset, and the two continued squabbling in the bus. I guess our boy found his first rival. The gang got together and tried to plan their next move until another challenge was issued. No wonder they call this the Camp of Hell. Each participant had to serve 50 meals for the athletes before heading to sleep. Our boy finished his early and went to take a bath, but guess who he ran into? His bitter nemesis, Nakiri Irina. She did not take his offense well and despised his guts even more. These two would have been a great power couple if they tried things out. Yukihira made his way to the bath and found Dojima chilling. These two hit it off and started talking about the difficulty of succeeding inside Totsuki. He told him to beware of Nakiri, since her god tongue made her a monster, and just then their conversation was cut short by Takumi, and everyone started pouring in like flies. The girls teased one another and went back to their room to relax. This camp sure was exhausting. Megumi started narrating about her day and everyone chipped in. The next day, they met up with Chef Shinomiya, a ruthless man who does not tolerate any mistakes or imperfections. The students were starting to feel nervous, and 2 students were failed on the spot after sharing information. This guy sure is cruel. He kept on failing everyone and it seemed impossible to pass until Yukihira defied all odds and passed. Megumi was up next, and she sadly failed because she changed the recipe. Yukihira stood up to his conceit and demanded he revoke the decision. In fact, he even went to the lengths of challenging him to a Shokugeki. This guy sure has balls of steels. Dojima showed up and accepted the Shokugeki and forced Shinomiya to do the same. Megumi was really upset at Yukihira for sticking out his neck for her. She couldn't hold her tears back, even though Yukihira didn't bat an eye. They went underground and several alumni came to fairly judge the battle. Is this really happening? To make matters worse, Yukihira isn't allowed to lead, and Megumi has to do the battling and choosing. These are unfair odds, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. He whipped her into shape, and she turned into a different beast. Her childhood memories came flooding in, and this inspired her to move forward. Shinomiya was relaxed, since this was a breeze for him. Yukihira and Megumi went to work, and she took the lead, even though Yukihira was doing most of the grunt work. The alumni were surprised at his tenacity, and it was finally time to judge. Shinomiya went ahead first and delivered an excellent meal. The judges were lost for words. Then again, he is a pro. What else would we expect? He was the only Japanese to open a restaurant in France, and everyone saw why. It was now Megumi's turn to dazzle the judges, and despite her horrible past, she actually managed to wow them. The blend of ingredients matched superbly and was light on the tongue. She was thrilled to hear how much her hard work paid off, and even Dojima was impressed by her. The judges felt like they were transported to rural Japan and reminded them of the old days. All their compliments made her cry, and it was now finally time to judge. Judges placed their coins one by one while Megumi started reminiscing and praying. Unfortunately, everyone chose Shinomiya. Honestly, who could blame them? Does this mean goodbye for Megumi and Yukihira? Wait. Dojima placed his coin on Megumi's plate and asked Shinomiya to rethink his decision. We were then transported back to his school days, and he sure was a troublemaker. He saw several struggles while opening a restaurant in France, and everything was pinned against him. Until he managed to stare down his demons, and now it was time to show some compassion. After taking a bite of her meal, he felt some sympathy and decided to forgive her previous blunder and current objections. Would you look at that? They lived to see another day. The next day, they were all back in the kitchen fighting for dear life. Being a chef sure is hard work. Even during their breaks, they were summoned to the hall late at night and were told to create a breakfast menu by tomorrow morning with egg was the main ingredient. Everyone started stressing out since they had a few hours to go and had no time to sleep. Nakiri was looking fine as always, and everyone was up trying to think of a creative menu. Our boy was trying to think of a dish that will blow the socks of Nakiri and everyone, while Megumi was panicking as usual. Just then, Nakiri Alice showed up to intimidate Yukihira. The challenge in this place is real. Everyone went to their stations and Nakiri was paired alongside Yuki. Whoever set this up was a mad genius. The doors were finally opened and hordes of families and top chefs started pouring in. This was going to be the toughest competition by far. Not only did they have to serve everyone, but they had to finish a certain quota within the given time limit. The place was buzzing with joy and excitement as the food was sublime. Nakiri presented her dish and the glisten drew in everyone. Yukihira was having troubles since no one was tasting his dish, while Nakiri finished 200 servings already. Alice had everyone going for seconds and showed everyone why she was Nakiri's cousin and rival. She finished 300 servings already and Yukihira was the only one left behind. What happened? My guy was lost for words, and time was running out. He only has 30 minutes to serve 200 plates, and despite the overwhelming challenge, he never gave up. People started driving in one after another, while everyone was done with their portions. He went on overdrive and started working like a beast. Everything was done to perfection, and the people were left dazzled by his skill and showmanship. He used a technique called live cooking, which consists of using theatrics to attract the audience. Time was ticking, and Yukihira was barely there. He made it just in time and passed by barely. Nakiri finished 400 servings, and Alice came to gloat at him. These two Nakiris will surely be the death of him. I do love their tenacity though, makes the show worth watching. They were all saddened to the lobby and were told 300 students were dropped since the start. Afterwards, the remaining contestants were congratulated on passing this far, and the final challenge of the campus was revealed. Well, not much of a challenge, rather, a delight. Everyone packed their bags and started leaving one by one. Yukihira and Megumi were bombarded by several alumni who tried recruiting them. However, they both declined since they had to finish school first. As they were exiting, Dojima momentarily panicking after seeing a figure he once knew. I'm guessing it was Yukihira's father. Just then, Yukihira forgot his headband and went back to get it. But upon returning, his bus had already left without him. Same thing happened with Nakiri, and a personal car was arranged to take them home. He tried conversing with her, but she wasn't having it. Seems like she still held a grudge for embarrassing her. Talk about a petty woman. The irony of the matter is that she actually idolized his father and didn't know he was his son. Even Dojima found out that Joichiro gave birth. Speaking of the devil, he showed up to the dormitory and welcomed everyone back with a wholesome meal. It was then revealed that he was actually a Totsuki alumni, former second seat of the Elite 10, Saiba Joichiro. Yukihira was completely taken aback by all of this and felt worthless. Ishiki, on the other hand, was super excited to meet his role model. He prepared them a lavish meal, and they were all transported across the world. First Egypt, then deep space. The old lady then told them that Dojima was his best friend and the previous first seat. Who knew this dorm had the best chefs in school? The two started chatting and he even told him the room he was in used to be his. Now this is starting to sound poetic. The next day, he challenged Yuki to one of their classic contests, and they called in the old lady and Ishiki to judge. Megumi happened to drop by and became the third judge against her will. The two got to cooking, and Yuki revealed that he lost 489 times. Ouch. That got to sting his ego at least. Even so, he never gave up and presented his dish to the judges. Despite the limited ingredients, he was able to teleport them to a magical fantasy land and left them confused on how he was able to do it. He tried explaining his genius, but even I couldn't follow. It was now time for the man known as the Demon. He presented what looked like basic ramen until they started slurping like crazy. It was then that they understood the depth in his cooking and the reason he was the second seat. His cooking was truly elite, and Yukihira didn't hold a candle to him. He still has a long way to go before he could even scratch the surface. Joichiro won with a unanimous vote, and that spelled Yuki's 490th loss. They both recorded every detail of it in their journal. Now that's quite the bond they possess. He bid them goodbye and went about his way. What a cool guy. Back at Yuki's hometown, his friends were starting to miss him and his cooking. All of a sudden, our boy made an appearance, and everyone came rushing in to taste his cooking. This guy sure is a legend in this parts. He served everyone all on his own without batting an eye. They all left satisfied until some customers started complaining about the new mall that opened up. They were store owners who lost their business to the mega conglomerate. There was this special kebab they sold which was selling like hotcakes on the 4th of July. Yukihira wanted to stand up to them and dethrone their reign of terror, and everyone wished him luck. It seemed like an impossible mission for him, but his friends were there to support him. He spent his night trying to think of ways to beat them, and ended up calling Mito to come help him. After all, she was the queen of meat. The following day, she showed up looking fabulous as always, and Yuki welcomed her with open arms. They headed to the mall to scout the competition, and Mito had all eyes on her. They went to the store and purchased their karaage. It was basically like kebab, and the chicken was exquisite. The chairwoman started gloating over how good it was and started threatening them. Despite her intimidation, Yukihira didn't back down and went to work immediately. He planned to make karaages even better that packed a serious punch. They started crunching the numbers and how they'd get quality meat, while the chairwoman was in talks with the owner. These guys sure were ruthless. The next day, Yukihira came up with an ingenious idea to overtake his competition. He explained to them how their karaage comes in boxes and can only be eaten at home, while the real experience of eating it involves walking and dining. Since the malls don't allow that, he came up with an idea to let students and workers enjoy theirs as they were going back home. He tried to come up with inventive ways to package it while still trying to elevate the taste. Mito was feeling a bit frustrated by the whole situation, and Yuki made it even worse. Fortunately for them, he found a way to make the meat juicier and even chose a special seasoning. They were ready to start their business, and Yuki finally found the secret weapon. People were walking around with what seemed like a shawarma, and the chairwoman was getting frustrated. Upon going to the shopping district, she saw crowds of students and workers lined up to purchase the new and improved karaage roll. I told you he found an ingenious idea. Within 3 measly days, our boy managed to take down a huge conglomerate on his own. Now that's the people's champ for you. He even forced the chairwoman into submission. Now that his work was done, he was ready to leave and told them to handle things from here on out. Upon returning to the campus, he was surrounded by thugs and escorted to the 9th seat of Totsuki, Izan, who commended his efforts and told him to watch his back. This school is filled with all sorts of twists and turns, huh? Elsewhere, the Totsuki Elite 10 held a meeting to discuss the upcoming event, and Nakiri seemed biased when it came to Yukihira. Everyone wanted him to attend it and received the majority vote. The results were published and several students were seen crying and wailing. As expected, the major names passed through and Alice started making a fuss for no reason. The autumn elections were a huge deal and the participants were divided into 2 groups. It was an elimination match and every man was for himself. They were all hell-bent on winning since it would boost their reputation and their chances at joining the Elite 10. The first challenge was issued and the theme was curry rice. Yukihira tried to remember his father's teaching and went to a secluded club to meet another alumni. However, he was struck down by Shiomi, who hated his father's guts. Since when did a father's sin transfer to the son? In a flashback, we saw exactly why she hated him, and it had everything to do with his disgusting specialty. After chatting a bit, her prodigy, Hayama, tried to ease the situation and accepted to teach them more about curry. His Indian background and in-depth knowledge in spices was unprecedented. He gave them glimpses of what spice mastery looked like and what authentic curry is supposed to taste like. It was quite complicated. But with every dish, Yukihira and Megumi started to understand the profound impact spice played in every dish. Hayama then challenged Yukihira and told him to watch out in the upcoming autumn elections. This entire situation had Megumi feeling a tad bit overwhelmed, and honestly, even Yukihira felt a bit anxious. After all, this concept was unfamiliar for several people. It was too niche to master overnight, and curry required precise selection of the appropriate spices. They all went out looking for ways to up their game and stand out. Nakiri was even training hard while Alice was eavesdropping. Megumi returned to her hometown to sharpen her skills and touch base with her family. Aldini went back to Italy, and Yukihira spent his days trying several variations. Hayama was even trying his best, and it was finally time for the event. They all entered a large arena, and everyone seemed confident and ready. The director, Senseimon, was among the judges, showing you how serious the situation was. He declared the start of the event, and the preliminary exams started. They started cooking their heart out, and formidable chefs were present to judge the dishes. Haba Haba, who is this hottie of a chef? Now boys, let's stay focused. The students were giving it their all, and no one held back. Each one had a unique style that gave them an edge over the others. That's what this competition requires, after all. Yukihira unleashed an aroma bomb on the crowd, and Hayama figured it out in an instant. Does this guy have perfect smell or something? Everyone was working hard, and Megumi felt out of place as usual. Aldini was feeling great, and just then, Megumi surprised the crowd by unleashing her demonic abilities. Who knew she had that dog in her? Her skills were on par with a pro, and this inspired everyone to give it their all. Time was up, and the contestants started presenting their meals one by one. I sure wish I was in the judge's seat. Imagine tasting all this food for free and giving snob remarks. Is there anything better? They gave points out of a 100, and they seemed stingy at first since the majority was failing. A weird contestant showed up and her food reeked. It smelled so bad the judges were left in a dilemma. Since it was their duty, they gave it a shot, and to their surprise, it was actually delicious. How could a dish so repugnant and malicious taste so good? I, for one, will never understand. Next up was Arena's secretary, Arato, and the taste left the judges pumped up. It's almost like they felt healed, after all. They did call her the medicinal chef who cures as she cooks. She passed with flying colors and expunged all evil. 92 out of a 100. Very impressive. The next contestants came forth and delivered on their promise. The competition was getting fierce, and a lot of students were passing with good points. However, I still can't believe the judges' appetite. How are they not full after all this tasting? The Aldini brothers took a special twist and prepared a calzone. They really mixed Indian and Italian cuisine. Now that's genius. Alice was up next, and she seemed as conceited as ever. No wonder, since her presentation was world-class. The taste was something even the judges couldn't understand. They were lost for words until she started explaining what she did. She received the highest point yet, 95, making her first. Megumi interrupted and brought in her masterpiece. You can tell she took a lot of caution making this and infused it with her love. They even gave her 88. Talk about an underdog story. The judges were still going at it, and it was time to taste Kurokiba's dish. I always imagined him as a background character since he was tailing Alice around everywhere, but he sure surprised everyone. With his fiery attitude, he forced the judges to succumb to his will and blew their minds, receiving 93 points, making him the highest in Group A. The Queen of Meat followed up with a banger of her own, and man, she did not fail us one bit. It seems that her Shokugeki against Yukihira elevated her cooking. She scored an 86 and felt flustered when Yuki complimented her. Awesome-looking dishes started popping up one after the other, and the judges were in a constant flux of unbridled enjoyment. I'm not usually envious of characters, but these judges are probably the luckiest side characters I've met. Group B had already finished their tournament, and things were getting heated in Group A. Hayama showed them what true curry is supposed to smell and taste like, and knocked their socks off with his genius. Even Yukihira was shocked at his creativity, and the judges couldn't help but flirt and tease. They all admitted his proficiency and gave him 94 points, making him the highest in Group A. Last but not least, the man of the hour, Yukihira Soma. His dish exploded inside the arena and left reverberating aromas that packed a mean punch. The judges were left in tears, and Hayama was puzzled by his unprecedented creativity. Little do they all know, he was the son of Joichiro, the best chef of Totsuki in my opinion. The judges had no option but to submit to his will and grant him 93 points, making him second. How unfortunate, he was tied with Kurokiba, and the preliminary was finally over. That's all for this epic anime. If you'd like to receive more awesome content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and stay updated.